Well, hello, you guys. How are you all doing? I suppose you're all doing great and welcome back to the channel The 13th Stance. What exactly are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about expressing opinions more precisely. What are we going to learn today? How to express opinions with nuance and precision, beyond just I think. We will talk about some key hedging structures. 10 to would argue it seems to some extent and 10 advanced vocabulary words for discussion and debate, and of course, how to write a balanced, sophisticated opinion paragraph. So let's go! Ну і як завжди, ви можете знайти цей воркшіт та набагато більше корисного контенту в нашому телеграм-каналі, ну і інших соцмережах The 13 Stance. And let's go on to some core vocabulary, nuanced, showing fine, subtle differences, not black and white. Her opinion on the topic is very nuanced. Perspective, a particular way of thinking about something. From my perspective, the solution is clear. Viewpoint, a position or opinion on an issue. I understand your viewpoint, but I disagree. Assert, to state something confidently and firmly. He asserted that the policy was wrong. Claim, to say something is true without full proof. She claims the results were manipulated. Acknowledge, to accept or admit that something is true. I acknowledge that there are two sides to this. Concede, to admit something is true, often reluctantly. I consider my original argument was flawed. Whereas, used to contrast two different facts or ideas. I prefer remote work, whereas she likes the office. Nonetheless, despite what has just been said, nevertheless, it was a difficult task. Nonetheless, we should try. Arguably, one could argue, possibly, it can be claimed, this is arguably the most important issue today. And a little pro tip, claim suggests some doubt. The speaker isn't sure it's true. Assert is more confident and direct. You can use claim when you are reporting others' opinions you are not sure about. For example, he claimed that he was there. You're not sure about that. You do not know that. And you can use assert when presenting a firm position. For example, he asserted that he was there. So we are confident that he was there. That was a firm position. And let's go to some grammar. Hedging, softening and qualifying opinions. What exactly is hedging? That is when you are making your statement less absolute. Instead of this is wrong, you will say this seems problematic. Instead of everyone agrees, you will say many people tend to agree. Instead of it's bad, you will say it's arguably counterproductive. Why do we need to hedge? Because it sounds more intelligent and balanced. It shows you understand complexity. It is more persuasive in academic and professional writing. And here are some key hedging structures. Tend to. What generally happens, what is usually true. People tend to resist change. I would argue that it's when you present your own views with confidence but openness. I would argue that this approach is more effective. It seems that attitudes are shifting to some extent. I agree with this view to some extent. Arguably, this is arguably the most pressing issue. It could be said that the policy has failed. In my view, from my perspective, the benefits outweigh the risks. They are all kind of similar, but at the same time, they are different. There are some nuances, so you can see there is a block with use. You can go through it, you can read it. Of course, when you download the worksheet, you have the possibility to go through it, yeah? And about strong and hedged, what is the difference? Strong sounds aggressive and risky, and hedged sounds professional and balanced. For example, everyone thinks this is wrong. The policy is a failure. I'm right about this. That's the best solution. It is a bit aggressive. All of those are a bit aggressive. But hedged sounds more professional and balanced. Many people tend to feel this is problematic instead of everything's wrong. It could be argued that this policy is ineffective instead of this policy is a failure. I would argue that this is the strongest position. This is arguably the most effective approach. Sounds wonderful, right? Then let's go to a little model opinion paragraph. I would ask us to read and analyze it. So, from my perspective, remote work has had an overall positive impact on productivity. I would argue that employees tend to perform better when they have more control over their environment. It seems that companies which offer flexible arrangements attract stronger candidates. To some extent, I acknowledge that not everyone thrives working remotely. Some people find isolation challenging. Nonetheless, the evidence suggests that the benefits arguably outweigh the drawbacks for the majority. Whereas the traditional offices prioritize presence, modern workplaces are increasingly prioritizing results. Wonderful. So let's notice some things from my perspective. That's a personal signal. I believe that. I would argue we're confident, but at the same time, we're not aggressive. Tend to, that is generalization. It is not absolute. It's like most people do that, or I tend to do that. Yeah, I have a tendency in doing that. To some extent, I acknowledge when we consider another point, a counterpoint. Nonetheless, when we return to the main possession, arguably that's a hedged superlative, yeah? And whereas the contrast, wonderful, wonderful. Yep, here are some more common mistakes that we may have. I am agree with this. It is not correct. It should be I agree with this. In my opinion, I think that it is better to choose just one. In my opinion, or I think, because they mean the same thing. Arguably, this is the most best. The best, not the most best, just simply the best. I concede, but I concede that, or you can just use nonetheless. Yeah? Whereas I like coffee, tea is nice too. It would be better to say I prefer coffee, whereas others prefer tea, for example. Yeah? Or just simply I prefer coffee to tea. And what's important, whereas goes not in the beginning of the sentence, but in the middle between the clauses. Yeah. And here's a little quick check. I'm giving you 20 seconds. Look at these words and phrases, pause the video, and let's check your answers. Your task is to choose the best words. So I'm giving you 20 seconds, and let's check it out later. Well, you guys, what do you think? So, from my perspective, of course, from my perspective, I would argue that social media has both benefits and risks. People tend to prefer familiar routines over the new ones. I agree with this view to some extent. This is arguably the most important decision we've had to make. Wonderful. Great job, you guys. And you're left with speaking challenge and a little question for the comments. So, could you choose one of these statements and build a response of 4 or 5 sentences using at least 3 hedging structures from today? Technology has made our lives better. Learning English is essential in today's world. People are happier working from home. Try to state your view, consider counterpoint, and return to your position with nonetheless or nevertheless, okay? And the question we have is, could you please write in the comments and give us your opinion on one of the statements above, using at least 2 hedging expressions from today's lesson? Could you use whereas to contrast 2 ideas? So the same task, but kind of a different point. The same statements, but a bit different task, a bit of a different point, okay? And the workbook. I am not showing you workbook as always. Yep, because why? You're going to find the workbook in here, in the Telegram. So go in there and get it there. And I suppose I hope to see you next time. Stay safe. Bye bye.